Thank you for tuning in to a new series of RimWorld called Frostwardens. If you would like to skip the scenario's lore and faction overview, please use YouTube chapters. Human-triggered climate change was never abated, and all the world's ice sheets and glaciers melted, giving way to extreme weather and unprecedented sea level rise. Humanity was already on the brink of collapse when a supervolcano in the southern hemisphere erupted, and an immense amount of ash enshrouded the world and blocked out the sun. Crops failed, people starved, and governments crumbled. The volcanic winter caused the temperature to plummet, and people got desperate. As the oceans started to freeze, the last great minds of human civilization came up with an absurd solution: use volcanism to survive. An experimental research site, the Ark, was established in the Arctic Circle to build a generator which would sustain humanity. But the researchers failed to anticipate how dangerous, desperate people could become. The Ark site was attacked by marauders, and the location was lost to history. Decades have passed, and the ash has since settled, but the world remains frozen, and the surface of the planet reflects too much sunlight for the Ice Age spell to break. 4 brave scavengers rediscovered the lost Ark site by chance, and through their wisdom and ingenuity, they uncovered the secrets of the Ark and decide to revive the project as a beacon of hope for humanity. Our starting 4 people belong to 2 major factions. 2 major factions remain since the collapse of the world: stalwarts and pilgrims. The stalwarts are egalitarian and progressive individualists who believe that through research and science, humanity will be saved. The pilgrims, on the other hand, are collective industrialists and place their conviction in hard work and adaptation to the harsh world they've inherited. Initially, life in the Ark site is too desperate and expectations too low for the factions not to cooperate. But some leaders within the factions worry that if the Ark project succeeds, the 2 factions will further diverge, and their visions for the future will create a schism between the groups. Will the factions compromise and capitulate, forsaking their vision of an idealized world in the name of cooperation? Or will one faction rise to power and seek to enshrine their virtues for the betterment of all of humanity? Only time will tell. Here is our lovely little planet, and we know very little about it, as you can tell. And here is our starting map tile. Now, to avoid an enormous wall of text, the settings, rules, goals, mods, all that stuff will be shown later. But what I do want to show initially is our starting colonists. We've got Nabla, iron-willed, quick-sleeper, neurotic, and she is an herbalist and alchemist, good with social, intellectual, medicine, and art. Zeusin, sanguine, hardworking masochist, construction, crafting, cooking, and intellectual. And they both belong to the Stalwart faction, as it is color-coded. Now, it just so happens these factions aren't gendered. It isn't men versus women. Just the original 4 founders belong to these 2 factions. We have Axios, a boy soldier and frontier marshal, bloodlust, kind, and a jogger, shooting, plants, animals, medicine, and fish pick. A tough brawler who's industrious, construction, mining, melee, and social. This is our map tile. And there are some important features for me to highlight before I start playing. One is that there are no surface materials, no metals, no ores, nothing on the surface. There is also no geothermal geysers other than the one underneath the ancient Ark. There is just one geyser. In fact, there are almost no geysers on the entire globe. As the lore of the story, the sea level rose tremendously, and most of the world is a frozen sea ice. So there's barely resources to be found anywhere. Right off the bat, I want to start off by doing some manual priorities, making sure that everyone is putting in the right work. And hooking them up with weapons and studying the ancient ark so that they understand how it works. It's worth noting that if any of these four or all of these four survivors die, that is a game over situation. Before I go any further, let's set up drug policies, and for now it's going to be none. Reading policies, which will also be none. Carrying herbal medicine, maximum amount. And for doctoring, care but no medicine. I'll administer medicine when I see fit. Zeusin is going to study the research terminal, and Axios is going to go study the ancient ark, while I figure out how to make the best use out of the facility that we have. So we have a few basic buildings here, but they are not well suited to protect us from the cold. So we're going to retrofit them so that they serve our needs. I'm also going to go to the effort of breaking virtually everything in this camp down to its basic parts, because in its current state it is not needed or even usable, as most of this is all just broken debris and garbage as a result of the marauders. Starting buildings are indeed a godsend. So Axios has studied the Ark here, and I'm going to get everyone to study the Ark so that all four have the important knowledge. And thank you for all the love in the chat, the resubs and cheers. So cheers to all of you. All right, Zeusin just finished studying. And I'm going to try to retrofit this room to be a bit of a bedroom. So Zeusin, come over here and start deconstructing the torch. So, if we take a look, Zeusin and Axios have studied the Ark, Fish Pick, and Nabla need to. Because we don't want to forget anyone. That would be problematic. Alright, Nabla, you're up. And Fish Pick, I'm going to have you start moving the bedrolls. I'm also going to get rid of all of the old school power conduits, as they are not electrical feedback safe. Best not risk that. Okay, everybody has studied the Ark, so we're going to break it down for parts now. Zeusin, I'm going to leave that to you. Fish Pick. It would be helpful if the construction crane and construction truck were out of our way. And then we're going to start breaking down the Ark parts that are around it. So eventually we will build an Ark here, but what's going to be important is that we move the resources that are underneath the Ark out of the way, or they will be destroyed in the process. Which I think is a bit of a bug for the mod, which will likely be fixed. So now that we have a very simple barracks, I'll get it hooked up with heating, or we'll very quickly freeze to death, and I don't want that. Alright, there is just one more stack of steel, and then 2 slag chunks in the way, and we'll get the ark rebuilt. Next up, a stonecutter table, and a smelter. And now, Zeusin, let's get you working on the ark, which is the advanced reactor that we're going to rely upon. And we're trying to break down everything we don't use into its fundamental components so that nothing goes to waste. Now, there is a lot of stone around, because we are in essentially the caldera of an dormant or pseudo-dormant volcano. But all there is stone, slate and limestone here, and very, very little else. Does the reactor produce energy and heat? It just produces energy. Alright, the stonecutter table is all set. Zeusin, we don't have enough arc components yet to build the whole reactor, so we're going to break down more of these ancient arc parts. We are 1 arc component away. I'm going to start making limestone blocks. I'm going to limit its ingredient radiance to 50 and drop them on the ground when we're done. And then behind that, I will do slate, 50. And then when I don't care what kind of block, anything, and we'll do 75. Work priorities. Moving crafting up a little higher so that someone starts cutting stone. Our primary building material is going to be stone, as we have a very finite access to steel and components and things like that. So that's one of our first hurdles to meet. And we're getting a smelter, because this site has 42 slag chunks. Probably going to increase once we break down the remaining arc parts. And that's going to be a very helpful resource as well. For the smelter, we will smelt the slag, drop it on the ground. And the initial arc building is almost done. Luckily, all the individual arc components were salvaged. And now it is producing 3,600 watts. Now, I'm going to start scheduling here. In the morning, mandated recreation. free time in the evenings, and then mandated work during the day. I'm going to change the home zone. So the home zone is going to be this area, and it's going to be under auto repair. And then for area 1, I'm going to include a slightly larger rectangle around the home site. And just call this close. Nobody is restricted to this zone, but it's going to be handy once hypothermia is a real risk. Alright, the next thing I'd like to build, once we have the resources, is a research bench. Because without a significant amount of resources and research, we're going to be dead in the water pretty quickly. And I'm going to build that out of slate. Between limestone and slate, limestone is the tougher material, so slate's going to be my choice stone for flooring and for furniture. And additionally, we have a very limited amount of food, so that is another massive barrier for long-term survival that we'll have to rise to the occasion to meet. So in terms of food, we do start with hydroponics. So I'm going to build a sun lamp up here and build a hydroponics area around it. And this is going to be the range of the hydroponic lamp, meaning that this area needs to be retrofitted for plants. So now that we have a little bit of limestone, I'm going to start to set up a grow area. So that will be our initial farm. Pretty close to the core of the arc. We are down to 37 slag. Good. Because once all the slag's been handled, we can pretty much shut down the electric smelter to, so that we don't hemorrhage power. I guess it's recreation hour. And I'm curious, Axios and Nabla are already getting along? Now, they might have ideological differences, but they don't hate one another, at least not yet. Alright, Zeusin is getting the research going. And this is the research we started with. Passive cooling, complex clothing, stone cutting, complex furniture, electricity, air conditioning, which I can't imagine we will ever need. Hydroponics, nutrient paste, and I'm going to be researching microelectronics. Yeah, one thing that I can say about this world that we live in is air conditioning is like a technology that we can forget about. So the current priority now is build hydroponics. That is our next most immediate need, as I think pretty well established. And now would be a really good time to go over the details. So the rules. No corpse looting, weapons, or clothing. In fact, as you can see at the bottom of the settings there, all non-colonist weapons are biocoded and worthless. Worthless meaning they cannot be smelted for resources. They are truly worthless. No slavery. No trade caravans. There's really nowhere to trade with, but we're not heading out to go trade with anyone. Only stalwarts and pilgrims are allowed as colonists. So if we do take prisoners of war, they will be converted to the ideology most suited for their skill set. And we are not going to go to war with the other civil factions. So, about factions. Here is the current factions. There are stalwarts and pilgrims out there, led by Liara and Tal. There is the army of scavengers, led by Wirlig. The prime army, led by Ravak. And the godless, led by Cadet. The goal is to retain the knowledge of the Ark, which means that at least one of the 4 founders must be alive. The lose condition is that they all die. Studying the derelict Ark is what grants that knowledge. This may not be the only Ark in the world, though. So if all 4 die, but someone else has taken upon the knowledge, the series can still survive. So it's not necessarily about the founders, but about knowledge of the Ark. And the goal ultimately is to complete the Ark project. The settings is Randy Random losing his fun. There is no buildable power generators or generator research. So the only source of power will be the Ark. That's it. Nothing more. There's no above ground mineable resources or steam geysers besides the Ark geyser. I already mentioned that, but it's worth mentioning again. Drill speed and research speed is reduced to 33%, so things are slower. There is no mechanoid faction. And as I mentioned, all colonist weapons are worthless. And then there's this how to participate. So, live viewers are invited to choose a self-assigned faction to roleplay, and vote as if they are a member of that chosen faction. Live viewers who have assigned characters should vote in line with their characters. So if you win a raffle, and previously you were repping, let's say, pilgrims, and your raffled character is a stalwart, you should then vote in line with stalwart party. Live polling will be used when opportunities arise for citizens of the Ark to pass laws, undertake civil projects, or adopt new ideas. In some cases, polls may only pertain to one faction, and in those instances, if you are not a member of the faction, please abstain from voting. How social progress works. Changes to the city structure, ideologies, and governance of the Ark will be periodically proposed as measures to be voted upon, and often the voted measures will benefit one faction over the other. Live viewers are encouraged to vote for the faction they are self-assigned, vote for compromise, or simply defer their vote to me. I will mention that as a design of this series, compromising and deferring your vote is often a bad choice because essentially I am counting it as both parties lose. Now, that's not always true. Sometimes there will be fair compromises to be met, and sometimes you'll know the results of these compromises, but other times you won't. How social progress works. Changes to the city structure. So in many cases, the results of the voting will be zero-sum game, where if one faction gets what they want, the other faction will possibly lose something equivalent or become unhappy. Initially, the measures and consequences will remain trivial, but as the Ark City flourishes, the stakes that will also be raised, and the benefits of not compromising will grow. So early on, most of the decisions we make will be what I would call low impact, meaning that if one side wins, the other side doesn't lose too much, that it's not of much consequence. As I said, I'm calling them trivial. But eventually, there will be huge gains offered to one faction or the other, and you won't have both, and the faction that doesn't get it will become upset. So it's worth showing the ideologies at this point. So here is the Stalwarts faction. Individualist, progressive, egalitarian. Violence is disapproved. Permanent bases is desired. Crafting speed is slower for manual, and they never proselytize. This is another important point. Neither the Stalwarts or the Pilgrims proselytize to one another. They will never convert one another. They will never talk about their ideology with the opposite side. No one is switching sides voluntarily, in other words. And the other is Pilgrims. Slow research, permanent bases, proselytizing, never, and relaxed skilled labor. This extra precept up here is faction politics. This is essentially a mood modifier for the entire faction. And when one faction doesn't get their way, or one faction does get their way, this precept will change over time, as will other precepts as well. So that it's not technically fluid ideology, but things are very fluid. And a lot of things will happen behind the scenes, changing and modifying the factions and the citizens that belong to that faction. Okay, we have most of the surrounding wall of the farm, which is great. It is the 2nd of summer, and it is negative 17 Celsius out. If that's any indicator of how bad it's going to get, you have no idea. Oh, an eclipse. Luckily, our power generation isn't bound to the sun, so eclipse away! Doesn't bother me none. How much slag we have left? 32? So we haven't been doing a lot of smelting. So here's the map tile. As I mentioned, there is no overland resources. There is a lot of sort of deep bodies of water, of parts of the sea ice that has yet to freeze, probably due to geothermal activity. And some of these guys are a little upset. Maybe mandated recreation time will help. Who knows? So even with the grow light on, we are only losing about 200 watts. I could obviously turn this off, as we're not currently using it. But it's not really much drain on the power anyway, because the batteries will top up at night. I'm just going to cover it with a roof. And as far as research goes, things are really, really slow by design. So we're cracking our way into microelectronics. Now, if you're wondering, the plan essentially is to beeline to ground pen scanning so that we can start deep drilling resources. There are no surface resources, so without deep drills, we are absolutely screwed. And this was a design mechanic that I built into this because that's basically how Frostpunk works, right? The resources are essentially frozen and buried under ice, and this has the same sort of concept. Axios' face scares you? Yeah, he's a little bit of a high-energy bloodlust. Zeusin looks a lot more sweet. Nabla, a little neurotic. And Fishpick, ready to pick a fight. Picket Fisher, always ready for a fight. Alright, so we have the initial farm area built. I'm gonna reposition the building plan and put 2 heaters in and then hydro basins. What I want to do is eventually move research and sleeping in here so I only have 1 heated room. And eventually, once we have the power to heat multiple rooms, I'll do that, but at the moment we don't. So this is 11 basins and room for research up in the corner. Perfect. Alright, we have a lot more building to do. Nabla is chipping away at microelectronics research, while the rest of them are trying to set up the construction project. I'm going to leave the doors, actually, now that we're actually building a basin, I'll keep them closed. Perhaps so that Axios can start sowing what few seeds we have. It would also be wise if I moved the very precious art components into storage. There are some resources that we start off with, like art components and advanced components, gold and plasteel, which is near impossible for us to find out in the wild. So it's very important to cherish them as a result. So far, so good. So we have a power surplus of about 2,300 watts at night. And this room is heated enough for plant growth now. Hopefully soon we'll be off of packaged survival meals and able to eat the veggies of our labor. I'd say the fruits of our labor, but they aren't fruits. Rebuffed by Nabla. I hope there isn't a lot of infighting early on. That would be pretty crippling, I think. in terms of progress. For now, I'm going to turn off the smelter. No one's really using it, and I'd rather conserve power as we're adding more basins. You don't see cables? They're buried. And here is the very simple power network we've got so far. Next up, I want to double insulate the walls here so that the heaters don't have to work so hard to try to keep the area heated. How do the lights work? Well, this is just a sun lamp, so it's on during the growing day and turns off automatically. No magic. Alright, Axios, you're having a bit of a hard time, so I am going to... it is your farm after all. I'm going to move your bed into the farm. Maybe they'll help you out a bit. Oh, that's not useful. Not even a little. So I did already go over the ideology, but what I didn't do is the mods here. This is a incomplete list of the mods. Some of the mods can't be found on Steam. So the Vanilla Quest Expanded Generator mod is in pre-release, and you have to get it through the VE Discord. And then two of the mods that I made, Buried Timber and Ideology Happiness, are also not on Steam, but you can download them from my website, as you can the starting game file for this. And some of the settings will be shared later on, but because the settings are always changing, the mod settings that I have are not easy to replicate as they're a moving target. Okay. It's getting nicer, I think. We have most of the limestone required to enclose it. I'm a little worried about Axios and Fishpick's moods. The droner is definitely not helping. But there's not much I can do. It's not like we have drugs and there's only so many places to sleep and relax, so it's just the rough early days. I'm going to create a little stockpile here for those that don't have other jobs. We're going to haul stone chunks and slag to this zone. I'm also going to change meal assignments from lavish to simple. Modify the simple one so that it doesn't include hay, kibble, corpses, raw resources. I mean raw food. So simple meals, And package survival meals for now. And that might change with time. Alright, Nabla, it is time for you to move your research bench to gain the benefits of bright lights. And then I'm also going to put a heater right next to the seat that will cast light during the night. Thank you for tuning in to RimWorld Frostwardens, which originally streamed live on Twitch, January 19th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patron, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you on next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow survivors.